What's up, everybody? Welcome to a very special edition of Playing the Field, a Bachelor podcast. Yes, our normal friends are here, Jenn and Gina, but we are thrilled to welcome in two very special guests. Joe Amabile, Serena Pitt, hosts of the wildly popular Bachelor Happy Hour podcast. They are here with us now. Guys, let's just get right to Jenn's season. No, we don't know how this finishes, but what can we make of what we've seen thus far?
I think it's been a great season. We've seen some episodes with a lot of drama that we haven't seen before, which is always exciting for us as two people who have watched so many seasons of this show now. To see things unfold that are new to us makes it feel really exciting. I feel like there's been a lot of guys on this show and a lot of drama that's been unconventional and crazy and unexpected. And yeah, we've enjoyed the season overall.
I think we're seeing a lot of growth from Jenn. I think at the beginning, it didn't come across like she was fully ready for engagement, and I think we're starting to see that now.
Yeah, I feel like she's actually growing before our eyes throughout the course of the season. There's been a lot of like self-discovery and realizations from her.
Yeah.
And from the men, too. They've been getting deeper into their history, opening up to Jenn. Are these three men the guys you would have picked from the very beginning for her,
Good
or were you
question.
surprised?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't actually know if I would have.
I thought Devin could have went home with all the Sam M drama and the Aaron of it all. I thought he was potentially going to go home during that. But once he made it out of there, it makes sense that he's in the final three. Marcus, yeah. Marcus is a slow burn, but it makes sense.
Well, and I feel like the first one-on-one date, they either go really far because they have such a head start on everyone, or they kind of have that like burnout in the middle where it's like quick at the beginning and then they kind of get lost in the group.
And her conversations with Jonathan have always been like lighthearted and funny, and you always see her laughing with him, so that makes sense.
Yeah. But there was a lot of guys this season it could have been. Like, I remember, like, Jeremy, Grant. Like, there was a few guys near the end where I was like, we could see them all of a sudden, like, sneak in a little further than expected.
Yeah.
You guys have talked to several of Jenn's men. You've talked to Devin. You've talked to a few of them. So which one, I guess, which conversation surprised you the most so far?
I will say Devin was one of the easiest interviewees we've had in a long time. Like, he's very, very conversational. He's a natural talker, which I think we see on the show. Like, he's
Absolutely.
just good with his words. He's a good talker. And it's always fun when you get someone coming on the podcast that's really not afraid to speak their mind. And I feel like because he like gossiped so much on the show and was talking about the guys in so many of his interviews that he really had nothing to hide when he came on the podcast. So we were able to really get into the weeds of it, which makes it fun.
I would say Jeremy for me, because I don't think we saw their love story unfold as much as when we interviewed him, he was like, no, we were really close, and every week we were getting closer, because I was like, were you ready for an engagement? He's like, I thought I could get there. I thought I could get there, and I didn't necessarily see that on the show.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of love stories, and we were excited to see how Jenn's journey transpires and how that all finishes up. You guys met on Bachelor in Paradise. Obviously an unorthodox way of meeting people, but as we've seen in this Bachelor franchise, in this Bachelor family, couples do work out. Case in point, here you guys are. At what point did you know that this was going to be a thing? And kind of take us through your journey for our listeners who aren't as familiar.
You go first.
Good move on your part, Joe. Always let her answer that question.
I don't know why I jumped in the interview to answer this so quickly.
We met day one because we were both down there early on. If you watch Bachelor in Paradise, we were one of the first people on the beach. I'd say we hit it off right away. There was definitely like butterflies and a spark from our very first conversation. And then, yeah, it just kind of was a slow burn. Joe was sick the first 5 days of filming. He was really, really sick. So that kind of stalled us a little bit.
Well, I remember her telling people, like, he just, like, mopes around and, like, doesn't want to be here.
Hey, well, you didn't want to be there.
I was like,
But you were sick.
I'm like,
He didn't want to be there.
Well, I had, like, I think I had a stomach virus, you know.
It's Mexico, you know.
And,
Yeah, it happens.
and the best thing, once I got better, then Serena got sick. And I was like, see?
Yeah,
Karma.
he did. He was like,
Karma.
there you go.
And that's when I knew it was going to all work out.
Yeah, the stomach virus really bonded us. No, it was like, I don't know, 10 days in, we were like, oh, we really like each other. And then we obviously got engaged, which was crazy. But I would say it was a month after filming where we were like, oh, we made a good call. Like, this was heading in that direction. Like, there's obviously risk getting engaged on a show where you're like, I've met your parents and what does your apartment look like? But leaving.
What's your middle name?
Yeah. But leaving, there was really no shocks or surprises, and it kind of only was getting better. So, yeah, it all worked out.
Very seamless.
Mm-hmm.
And they really put you through the ringer that season on Bachelor in Paradise because they brought your ex to the beach, which couldn't have been pleasant for you either. So how do you feel that you made it through that and actually ended up getting to the point of an engagement?
I was very open and honest with Serena the whole time, and I think we just were able to communicate very well. And she's so mature at the time you were 24 and you were very mature and
I was 23. Crazy.
Okay, well.
Which makes her even more mature.
Point proven. So yeah, I think it was really all about communication and just being honest. And I didn't go on the show because I was still in love with someone. Like, I was really open and ready to date again. So yeah, that was all really.
Yeah, and it really tested our trust and communication in a way that it typically wouldn't have been in the real world, and I think it made us stronger and kind of bonded our relationship.
And even today, that's kind of I think that's why we work so well, is because we do just are very communicative towards each other. Is that a word?
Communicative.
Yeah. Sure.
Oh, God.
It's all good.
You're
Joe.
still
It's
making
all
him
good.
blush, Serena.
Aww.
All these years
Been
later.
a day.
You love it.
Talk about you guys. You talked about kind of going from show to real world. Talk about that transition, I would say, and just kind of any advice you would give to people who have to, who do go from show and all the glitz of it all and all of the, fantasy dates and all of these things to actual real life. Is there advice that you would give them? You guys clearly make it work, and you did make it work. So what would you say to them?
Yeah, I would just say prioritize the relationship. There's so much going on when you come off the show. It's very overwhelming. The kind of good thing was Joe was already very immersed in the world of Bachelor, so there wasn't that
Second
kind of
go around.
your fifth go around. But it wasn't this new shiny thing for him, and I also was able to lean on him to kind of guide me through what the heck was going on with my life. But we left the show and it was COVID times. So if I had gone back to Canada, I would have had to have quarantined for 2 weeks, and it would have been a whole thing. So I flew to New York and stayed with Amabile, who was on our season, for 3 days, and then snuck to Chicago to see him. You're not supposed to see each other, but if you can sneak a visit, it's a good thing. And we stayed in his apartment, basically quarantining because we couldn't go anywhere for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I just think spend as much time together as possible and just invest as much time in the relationship as you can when you're coming off the show, because the glitz and the glamour is so enticing, but that is the stuff that distracts. And those first few months coming off of filming and then after the show finishes airing, I feel are really crucial.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you hear a lot of contestants kind of complain about then being in the public eye, but I'm we're not.
The pressures
We're not
of the
Brad
public
Pitt
eye.
and Angelina Jolie. We have control of our own public eye because it's through our social media accounts. So, to me, it's really just focusing on the relationship and taking a step back from what you consider to be the public eye, because you do have full control of what you give.
Instead of Brangelina, this is Jorina. Is that what we call you guys?
Yeah, I like
Is that the name
that.
for it?
I like that.
I
yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
And you talk about true love. We were lucky enough to have you guys on our Eyewitness News this morning at 10 a.m. and it was great chatting with you on that platform and now being here as well. And we found out a very big piece of how much you two are in love. You share a 650 square foot apartment in New York City.
We do, yes. But we just got the washer and dryer changed out, which helps.
That's a big day.
Our
yeah.
old washer and dryer finally broke down to the point where it had to get replaced, and that is a day we've been waiting for since we moved in. Our old one was so old and so loud.
It would heat up the apartment. You would have to walk.
We'd have to have every fan on, every window open. It was horrible.
New York City living at its finest.
Yeah. So that was a big day.
Yeah.
And another contingency of we knew we were going to be in a small apartment if we came to New York City. We said, no, we have to have a washer and dryer. and we have to have a room big enough for a king-size bed. So those were...
Yeah, we have a king-size bed. I brought my king-size bed from Chicago.
Yeah.
I don't go anywhere without that.
And that's a game changer.
Which is probably the most space you guys have from each other is in taking each side of the king-size bed in a 650 square foot apartment.
Definitely.
But hey, you can survive that, Jen. You can survive anything.
I think so. And to have that washer and dryer is very key because that's like a luxury.
Oh, yeah. In New York City, absolutely.
You don't have to take it to the dry cleaners or, go downstairs.
In LA, too. It's
in
the same
LA,
thing.
too. That's
there
a good
you
point.
go. So what is it like being a part of Bachelor Nation? You guys left your shows and... I mean, had you ever heard of each other before you went to Paradise? I mean, it seems like one big family, and then you're also thrown into like going to special events. You meet celebrities and other things. Just, I guess, could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I had podcasted prior and was on a podcast called Clickbait, which was the sister podcast to Bachelor Happy Hour. So I actually talked about Serena on it, and we actually played it back to her. Where I was
no way.
Yeah, I was like, oh, she's attractive. Yeah. But that was kind of all I knew. And then going into Paradise, I didn't really do any more research just because I wanted it all to be somewhat brand new. So that's kind of where I was with it. And I'm sure you knew who I was.
I did. I knew who Joe was, but I didn't know if he would be there because I knew he was single. I never went on Clickbait, but a lot of the girls from my season had gone on the podcast. So I'd listened to a few of the episodes with them. And I remember, he blew up going home night 1 on his season. I remember all that madness. But yeah, I was surprised to see him down there. And once I saw him, I was interested for sure in getting to know you more. But I wasn't we weren't talking. We didn't follow each other on Instagram. We'd never spoken or met before. So it was kind of nice. It felt organic, as if it was meeting a mutual friend at a bar or something like that.
Which I do think when people do go down to the beach, that's how they should do it. You see a lot of people talking beforehand, via direct messaging or whatever.
Direct messaging? Are you 70? Oh, my God.
That's
cool.
I don't know what's happening.
I think the kids call it DMs. Sliding into the DMs is what the kids say.
Via direct message.
Via direct message.
Just, I don't know. Don't do that.
Gina, help us, please.
All right. We have invoked Bachelor in Paradise. It's coming back next season, which is awesome. We can't wait. We love watching. There are some great people that are kind of through these last few seasons between Zach and Katie's season and Charity and Dotton's season and Joey and Kelsey and now Jenn. Do you have do you think there could be some fun couplings out there? Do you see a couple that could work?
I haven't really thought about a couple that could work, but there could be a lot of fun couplings. And I think someone I would really want to see on Bachelor in Paradise is Greg Grippo. I think he would. I do. I think he would. I think a lot of women would be interested in him, and I don't think he's someone that people would think would come back. And I think he would make for great television.
Yeah, and if you
the
throw
redemption
Greg,
tour.
Yeah, if you throw Greg down there, you got to throw Andrew down there too, and they're just hilarious together. But there was a lot of good girls on Joey's season. They're gonna have a ton of people to choose from because there's gonna be 4 seasons,
right?
Which is how it was with us as well because they took a year off due to COVID, so they went season 5 year off or 6 year off us. And I think it makes for a better season when you just have so many more people to choose from.
Yeah, I would love to see Maria down there as well. I hope she does.
She'd be great in Paradise.
Yeah,
She'll
and
have
Sydney
so much
actually
fun.
too.
Who?
Sydney.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
I'm going to vote for Sam just because I like keeping the main thing the main thing.
Sam? I wouldn't
never
be
hear
surprised.
that enough.
I would be shocked if he wasn't there too. I
I'm
want
sure
to.
he'll be
I want to
there.
see him back on.
I bet you I wouldn't actually be surprised if he has a redemption moment in Paradise.
I would
feel
agree.
The Sams and Sydneys always go down to Paradise and everyone's like, why did we hate them again? They're really not that
Maybe
bad.
they get together, Sam and Sydney.
Or
Yeah,
Sam and
maybe.
Maria.
Sam
Didn't
and
he want to
Maria.
meet her? He said,
He did say that.
I wish that,
Yeah, I thought the Bachelorette was going to be Maria.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll get his chance.
How different is it for you guys? Because we watch this as people that have not been on the show. Do you watch these shows through a different lens because you've experienced it? And how much does that affect your judgment and what you're actually viewing?
Well, the great thing for me is I was only on the Bachelorette night one night, so I actually don't know. Like,
Well, you know some of the ins and outs
Yeah.
because you were there for the first night.
I know and I know the ins and outs of Bachelor in Paradise. I don't know. Do you think we watch it from a different lens? I feel like we kind of do.
Well, I think you didn't watch the show before you went on it, so you didn't really have like a lens to begin
That's true.
with.
That's true. But even when I watch different reality shows now, I see myself. I'm like, why would you do that? But I'm like, oh, give them a little grace, like, you know.
Yeah, I was definitely a watcher of the franchise before I went on it, but I would say I was a casual watcher. Like, I didn't follow any of the stuff on social media. I wasn't like ever like looking for spoilers. It was like, you know, if I was with my mom or my girlfriends, we'd like throw it on and have a drink and watch and gossip and chat, and then that would be our activity for the night. So I went in pretty aware that I was like, I don't really know what I'm getting myself into here as much as I have watched the show. Now I definitely watch it through a different lens. I actually feel like it's way harder to watch it casually for fun.
Oh, of course.
Like, I used to watch it so mindlessly, and now I just know too much. I actually think I used to be better at predicting how the show was going to go before I was on it too, because we just like I said, I just know too much. Like, it's overcomplicated in my mind now.
Yeah.
Are you guys? I have to interject real quick. Are you guys spoiler people? Because I argue with these two because they love to look up the spoilers. And for me, it's like buying a book and then reading the last page before you even start it. Why would you want to do that? So I watch it organically. I don't know what happens at the rest of Jen's season, and these two love to look that stuff up. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
I won't go out of my way to look up a spoiler, but if it comes across my desk, I just
When Serena puts it there, hey, check this out.
I'll look because, but
He's usually spoiling for me.
But I never know, and I do a pretty good job at predicting.
You are pretty good at predicting. I feel like it's so hard for us to avoid spoilers. Like, podcasting on the show, I actually actively try to avoid it every season. Like, I go in being like, don't tell me what happens. I'm not looking at anything. But
we never know. They don't tell us.
No,
and I
but
pry all the time, but they just
But isn't
never.
it better that way? Not
I
knowing?
think so.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
more
it is.
enjoyable, but it's very. I don't think we've ever gotten through a season without someone that we know that know. Like, a lot of people assume we know too, because word just gets around the community of Bachelor
Sure.
people. So it usually ends up coming.
I'm
out.
actually really curious. I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this season.
Yeah, we've heard some things, but we don't actually know what happens
Anything.
next week. So
Yeah.
that is exciting. This is the first time in a long time.
Spoilers have been
heard?
wrong.
What have
Yeah.
you heard?
Several times. So
And to their point, they've said this is something that we've never seen before
Yeah.
on The Bachelorette. We're about
Yeah,
to
and we
find
don't
out.
know what they're referring to. Like,
Okay.
we haven't had that spoiled yet.
in my defense, I like the spoilers to really just know who to pay attention to. You know,
Right.
sometimes they're kind of hidden and someone's like a dark horse that comes out of nowhere, but I don't want to ignore everything from the beginning from them because I want to remember it so I can bring it up later. So I think I use it as like a guide to just like who to pay attention to. And I try to not, let it, but because I think this season, I don't know if those ones that are out there are right.
What are your predictions?
Yeah, I was going to say, who do you think?
It really had me thinking Marcus yesterday, or I can't say because I just think she really seems to care about him. And I think he'd be, unless he self-eliminates, I don't know. I don't know how he leaves. That's
That
the
could
thing.
happen, and you know something about self-eliminating.
I do. Yeah, I did
Yeah.
self-eliminate.
Yeah. And that's a tough spot to be in if you know that you're not the one, but you're still trying to win the game, I guess. So kinda
Yeah,
take us through that mindset.
once I knew it wasn't for me, I was like, just get me the hell out of here. Like, once I was like, this isn't gonna work out, I was like, great, I'm out. I'm not trying to stay here longer than I have to. But I do think Marcus, at this point, from what we've seen, is like a candidate for self-elimination. He seems to be kind of, but I also thought Daisy on Joey's season was potentially going to self-eliminate, and then it
Yes.
took a total turn. But at the same time, she also kind of self-eliminated.
Well, I mean, things get more serious at the end, and your feelings progress way quicker than you think they would.
Yeah, I also think Fantasy Suites is like, I self-eliminated before Fantasy Suites, but if you're kind of on that fence, I think Fantasy Suites can be like a game changer one way or the other of like,
It's
no, this isn't going to work,
Yeah.
or
It's your first time alone, not mic'd up, so you could ask any questions that you didn't really want to ask.
The conversation is really what the fantasy suite is all about.
100%. But it is important. There's definitely things that you get on mic and you're like, oh my God, we have to talk about this.
I feel like if you remember, that was kind of the situation with Zach when he was with Rachel.
Yeah.
Is like he came out of that fantasy suite and was like, nope.
They both were like,
bye.
bye.
So yeah, exactly. They were like, nope, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, knowing them both, I would not have put them together either.
Yeah,
like, I could
no.
totally see that. Like he's so compatible with Katie.
Yeah, man, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
They do. Like, do you look at? I mean, you obviously see these things through a different eye. When you look, like, when you first watch, like on that first night, are you like, oh yeah, I can see this one, I can see that one? I'm still, for me, like, I looked at Devin and went, oh, okay, maybe. But I also looked at Marcus and went, yeah, I can definitely see that. So when you guys, even on that first night when all the limos are coming through, do you kind of make your predictions then?
We make our predictions, but you don't really know anything just from that. For me, at least, once we interview the couples and we see them physically together and how they banter back and forth, that's usually when I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And I think Katie and Zach are a perfect example of that because we interviewed them in LA and they were just like, oh, this makes sense. Like they seem to really, really love each other, and that shows.
Yeah.
Well, you
That
guys
was
had
Joey and Kelsey for me too.
Oh yeah, the
Oh,
next
yeah.
day from the fantasy suite, they were tickling and giggling each other and the making breakfast the next morning.
Yeah.
So you knew that they had felt pretty strongly about.
I
what
called it from
transpired
your
the night
question
before.
for him. When you asked Joey for the final six to say one word to
yeah.
describe each woman, and he had like this little telling twinkle and was like, oh, beautiful. When he
Yeah,
was like,
that
oh,
was his
Joey.
word to describe Kelsey. Yeah, I got
He
it.
couldn't help himself.
You could tell Joey was really into Kelsey, and you could tell Charity was really into Dotton.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
seasons.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would say Jenn is different from that. Like, you can tell she is
Yeah.
into every guy that's there, but like with Charity, we're like, her and Dotton are so in love. Like week three, we were like,
calling
what
that
is
week
going
3.
on?
Yeah.
And then same with Joey and Kelsey. I just feel like their body language, like Jen's, I'm having a harder time like pinning down. But I think Marcus is also throwing me off because he's having some internal battles.
It was Joey and Kelsey when they had the bar date near the end of the season,
Yeah.
and they were just like hanging out by like a pool table. I'm like, oh, these two really like each other.
Yeah.
And that's what you
Yeah.
want to see.
That date was awesome.
And when they were making breakfast afterwards, like after the fantasy suite, that was when I said, yep, there you go. That was it.
Yeah.
I know you guys are tight on time, but before you go, I know Jenn wants to ask you really quick about Grant.
Yes, I know you had him on your podcast, so tell us about Grant.
I think he's going to be great, and I do really like when they announce The Bachelor before they've gotten all the applications, because then you know people are really, like, the girls are going to be really into him.
That's
Yeah,
true.
and they rarely ever do that, and I do think it makes a difference. Because
Oh,
people
yeah.
are now applying, being like, oh, I could see myself with this guy, I'm into this guy. Like, I'm going to apply for the show because of that.
And I Grant is a very intelligent guy. We've interviewed him a few times, and he's, business savvy and just, like, very smart.
Yeah, athletic, good
And
looking.
usually those guys get really thrown off. And that's always entertaining. Because he's going to think he knows, and he's going to get down there and be like, uh-oh, I love 5 women.
We asked him a question, and we were like, are you nervous? And he was like, no, I'm not nervous at all.
You should be.
But his energy was giving similarly to Gary, who was like very not nervous. A lot of the leads go in not nervous.
Oh.
And then I feel like the ones though that go in the most confident are the ones that get thrown the most curveballs. But I do think Grant's very level-headed, and I think he's going to handle it really well. I think he's going to be a strong lead for sure. If he wasn't the lead, I'd be saying he's going to be one of the top guys in Paradise.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're excited to watch his season. We still have Joan with the Golden Bachelorette coming up.
Yeah.
Bachelor in Paradise soon after that. So we've got a lot to look forward to. And for those of our listeners that want to listen to your podcast, what do they need to know? Where can they find it?
Yeah, it's called Bachelor Happy Hour. We're on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you download your podcasts.
Yep, and you can subscribe. We put out 2 episodes a week, so we
Nice.
do a recap of the episodes, which is really fun. And then we always have a guest on as well, usually the last person to go home or the person that was the most relevant that week. So it's really fun. And then with Jen's season coming to an end, we'll have her on, and Yeah, lots of exciting stuff. The franchise is just never ending. There's always a show on.
That's
with
the best
these
part.
guys. Yeah.
Always something to talk about. Keeps us
Always
in
something to
business,
talk
which
about.
we like.
Yeah.
We're going to recap our very own episode, or have our own very recap episode, I should say, coming up, talking about the fantasy suites and the Men Tell All. That's still to come here on Playing the Field. But again, we can't thank you guys enough for joining us. It's been a lot of fun getting some insight into your journey and getting your thoughts on all the craziness that is Bachelor Nation.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
This
of
was
course.
fun.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. And I guess we'll see you next time. For Joe and Serena and Gina and Jenn, I'm Ryan. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Playing the Field.